encapsulated in just a few seconds. Suffice it to say that Shimon Fogel is the CEO of CJA, which is the advocacy arm for the Jewish community. And in that role, he has not only advocated on behalf of Israel, but has made sure that this is an organization which has a global reach and has a reach in terms of all sorts of human rights issues and concerns in Canada and throughout the world. It's a daunting job. It's sleepless nights. It's 24/7. And he does it with great skill. My pleasure to present Shimon Fogel.
So I have to one-up Rabbi Volka. He has a priest, the priest has a rabbi, but I have both. I have him as a rabbi, and I'm privileged to have a special relationship with Pastor Al-Shafi, and I'm honored to be with you tonight. You've heard already from a number of distinguished individuals about some of the challenges that Iran represents. And you'll hear more from some other distinguished guests later on. I think I know more than half the room over here, so I feel very comfortable in being a little bit casual. But on a slightly more formal basis, I did want to recognize a couple of people who I think in really important ways have made contributions to this whole public policy debate, and even the broader one which it implies. Brian Lee Crowley of the MacDonald-Laurier Institute has since, is it 2010 when you were first founded, made such an important contribution to engaging the public in some of the most important issues that face Canadians. And it is true, sometimes it's the weather that is a deterrent, and sometimes it's indifference. But most of the time, the challenge that we face is that what's happening and what should be alarming to us is so beyond our terms of reference. We are blessed to live in a country where we don't face the kind of brutality that Majid experienced in Egypt, that others have experienced in Iran. So it is so distant from us that it's hard for us to connect. And if we are indifferent, and if we don't express concern, I'd like to think it's more because it's so beyond our ken. And so one of the things that Brian Lee has done is connect some of the dots for people, for Canadians, through their lectures, through their publications, through their engagement and outreach across the country. So I'm so delighted that he's here tonight and we're able to benefit from his participation. And there's another fellow who maybe not in the most formal academic way, but there's somebody that I've come to know, Fred Litwin, who's modestly sitting in the back, who has taken on in the most creative way possible by looking at literature, by looking at films, and leveraging what people are able to capture in those artistic media to bring home to Canadians some of the terrible challenges that confront us on the public policy agenda. And so it's an opportunity for me to just recognize and salute Fred for all the work that he does, truly selflessly and at great cost, but it has real value. I don't want to presume to be the expert. You have people here who are so much better informed. But let me just add to what Garnett said, because I had the opportunity to meet with his leader, Rana Ambrose, yesterday, where the topic was Iran. And I want to publicly acknowledge the resolve of Her Majesty's loyal opposition in ensuring that this is not an item that falls off the agenda, that it remains central to the Canadian political radar in a way that's going to demand accountability. And I think that that's what we have to focus on, because in the few minutes that I have with you, I'd like to share a slightly different perspective. The previous government was driven, as Garnett mentioned, and as I think everybody has recognized, by a set of principles that dictated what Canada's orientation to specific challenges was going to be. The current government has a different approach. And I think it's important to say that it's as legitimate as any other. The notion of constructive engagement, which informs the whole liberal government's orientation to its engagement with the international community, has a real and credible basis. It's what Ronald Reagan used, that's where the term was first introduced, in fact, in nudging South Africa towards a more positive and constructive outcome, which ultimately led in the elimination of the apartheid regime. It was what they applied to China at a time when China seemed to be somewhat responsive to more constructive engagement and encouragement from the West. So there is a potential for engaging in a relationship with a regime like Iran to yield some positive results and movement on the part of the regime. But it can only be legitimate and credible if those grievances that Majid identified earlier, and it's not just the nuclear and ballistics program, it's their record of human rights abuses that he spoke about internally, domestically in Iran. It's the role that it has played not just as the mischief maker, but the central address of instability across the region. I mentioned Yemen, Iraq, Libya, its state sponsorship of terrorism through proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah, its genocidal statements against Israel, which I'll return to in a moment. If we can't hold them to account and calibrate our relationship as a country to progress towards complying with international demands and expectations, then it's no longer constructive engagement, it's capitulation. And I will suggest this. When, as Garnett observed, economic imperatives trump principle, there's a very, very expensive price to pay. Because it can be the case that selling Bombardier planes also brings with it selling your national soul. And that's what we have to hold our government to account for. And that's what we have to guard against. And it's true with every aspect of Iran's international comportment. There is an expression that has gained a lot of purchase. And Majid mentioned very explicitly that this isn't only an issue for Jews and for those that support Israel, even though it certainly is. The expression is, after Saturday comes Sunday. And what they mean by that is after the problem of the Jews is resolved, we turn to the next challenge, namely the Christian community. And we had in this building, I don't know if it was a year or two ago, an unbelievably moving event which drew attention to Christian persecution. So one of the things that I want to share with you, one of the things I want you to keep on your agenda, is the notion of Christian persecution. We have established here in Canada something really extraordinary. It's called the Office of Religious Freedom. And part of the motivation for the creation of that position, currently held by Andrew Bennett, a really outstanding figure here in Canada, was because there was a growing concern about the single largest persecuted group that in the name of generic human rights was being buried and shunted aside, and that is the Christian community. After Saturday comes Sunday. This should matter to all Canadians, because even if you aren't moved by the plight of Israel, you should be moved by the plight of your co-religionists around the world. We have to ensure that the Office of Religious Freedom remains intact, that it continues to spark attention and debate about something that is otherwise buried between the lines of diplomatic rhetoric. I'd like you to remember that. This evening wasn't just about calling out Iran, it was about what we can do. And I'm going to conclude by simply suggesting 3 things that I think would be effective. And let me first share, I don't know if it's a secret, but it's something that professional pollsters and those who commission polls don't really want people to know. When polls are undertaken, and they say we sampled 1,500 or 1,200 or whatever the statistical number is of Canadians, and this is what we found. Those that are commissioning the polls actually don't look at those numbers. There is a subset within every serious poll that really drives the actions of those commissioning the polls and really captures the attention of those doing it. And it's all about a subset called engaged Canadians. So when a polling company goes out and does a poll, they have embedded in their sample a subgroup called engaged Canadians. And that's who they look at, because they understand that the public policy debate at the grassroots level is driven by that segment of Canadian society. And who are these people? These are the individuals who write to their MPs regularly. These are the people that call in to radio talk shows. These are the individuals who write letters to the editor. These are the individuals who sign up on petitions. These are the people who translate a concern into action. So if you ask yourselves, what is it that I can do to hold my government to account? Let me tell you. You can write to them. You can write to their colleagues. You must write to them. You must write to the newspapers. You must make the call into the show. You must send in your emails. You must raise your voice. You must attend these kind of meetings. And most of all, you must bring somebody with you. Because if we can achieve that kind of public awareness, then we will be able to ensure that our voice is heard and that the message that we're seeking to convey registers. That's how you hold governments to account. That's how you keep a country true to its principles. These are the 3 things. Educate yourselves. Become fluent with the issues. Majid was only talking bullets, the headlines of the issues. You must become much more fluent with them. So not only you can reflect that in your communication with government and with media and the like, but so that you can engage your personal networks and help them connect the dots that Brian Lee or Fred do through their activities. You can only connect the dots for others if you have a command of the issues. Educate yourselves, engage others, and then translate that into action by reaching out and making sure that your voice is heard. If we do that, if we show that kind of sustained determination, we will impact public policy. We will make a difference. traditions, it keeps true to its principles, and it has the capacity to be accountable to its constituents. That's democracy. That's our calling. And I'm so grateful for what you've done tonight and what you continue to do. God bless you. God bless all of us. God bless Canada. Thank you.